stars of animation are shining. It's time to stay tuned. And now, here's your host, Phil Mackey.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back once again to Stay Tuned Live, the animation-themed live stream show every week happening right here on Streaming the Magic, right here on Facebook. And my name is Phil Mackey, and once again, I'm an animator, podcaster, and former Disney cast member, and it is my pleasure to be your host each and every week as we deep dive into the world of animated film. Before we get started tonight, here is a little reminder to those of you who might be new to Stay Tuned. This show and its podcast companion are both shows that require full-time commitment. The main way that I'm able to dedicate the kind of time that is, necessary to make that happen is through the support of viewers like you. So if you're watching and enjoying the show, you are invited to become an official tuner by visiting patreon.com/Phil Mackey. With fun rewards and multiple tiers to accommodate any budget, you'll find it's a great way to get involved and help me continue this series. Also, you are invited tomorrow night to this all-new live stream show hosted by yours truly. It's called Phil's Artist Conversations, and it features a fellow artist and close personal friend of mine, Mario Mora. We're going to be talking and taking a closer look at the lives of working artists and analyze what it means to pursue a professional creative life. We have a special guest showing up tomorrow, so make sure you tune in tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, and you can watch it for free from the official Stay Tuned page right here on Facebook. So all you got to do is go to facebook.com/StayTunedShow. Go ahead and like that page and make sure you're following, and you'll get notified about future broadcasts. Okay. I do my best, guys, to keep things professional and not play favorites. But I would be lying if I tried to hide my enthusiasm for tonight's guest. He has worked in storyboards for shows like Young Justice and The Spectacular Spider-Man, and to name a few. And he's also one of several directors from the groundbreaking television show Batman the Animated Series, a series that for many became the gold standard by which not only superhero stories were told, but also introduced a whole new generation to becoming fans of DC Comics itself. Please welcome the great Kevin Altieri.
Great? I don't know, but hi, everyone.
Welcome to mediocre Kevin Altieri.
Hi. Glad to be here.
I'm just kidding. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Kevin.
Hi, Phil.
Hey, I like your cat. I mean, your mug. I mean, your mug with a cat on it.
Miyazaki.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
The king.
Wonderful stuff. Yes. Love to see some Miyazaki appreciation going on here. So, well, first of all, welcome to the show, Kevin. It's really great having you here.
Oh, it's good to be here.
Thank you.
Even though I'm at home.
It's great for us to be in your home. We really appreciate you letting us in there.
No, thanks. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, I made sure to wipe my feet before I came in, so don't worry.
Okay, cool.
I kind of want to kick things off a little bit by talking a little bit about the role that you've played specifically in Batman, but of course you can also talk about how it has affected other shows you've been a part of. When I think of a director in movies and TV, I imagine someone who is guiding the actors, but it's different in animation where there's specifically a voice director doing that, right?
Yeah. Although I have done voice directing off and on, but is when it came to Batman, it was Andrea Romano. It was like there's just nothing bad you can say about the experience. It was just the most wonderful thing. And the fact that you had a voice actor and voice actors, a voice director and voice actors as good as them, just made the storyboarding so much better. It's because you listen to the voice, and everyone, all the board artists, director, board artists, everyone had we had tapes, and you could play off of the actor's performance.
Of course. And so then what were you directing? If you weren't directing the actors specifically and they were kind of guiding your choices, what were you directing?
You mean in the recordings?
No, I mean just like what do you do as an animation?
Oh, I mean you visualize the show. It's like what do the creatures look like? Quite often we'd go to the recording, and you'd bring one of my favorite memories is the first time I got to meet David Warner, and I was a big fan of David Warner, and it's like he's going to play Ra's al Ghul, and I brought the character designs in and the color designs and showed him this is your character, and he's like, oh, very nice, very nice. Ah, yes, and it's like, and then he launches into the performance. It was pretty awesome.
Oh, it's like an immediate gratification where you got design affecting performance, and then the performance going back and affecting the more design stuff.
Yeah. But as a director in animation, what you're doing is, I mean, it's not true necessarily for everyone, but it's like, I'll talk about what I do and what I did at Deke in the 80s, which carries over into what we did at Warner Brothers.
I don't hear that name very often.
Deke? Oh, well, that was where the core of a lot of the core of Batman came from, was because of my association. The first jobs in animation I had were at Deke, starting with Kid Video, and I met Dan Reba there, and Dan and I were like a storyboarding team. They had to deliver shows on Saturday morning, and I remember, I mean, there are many times where it's like I'm penciling, handing Dan a page, it's like scene after scene after scene, because, you got a freelance job or whatever that just didn't work. And we would just have to do, acts overnight, whole acts overnight.
Talk about down to the wire. My goodness.
Yeah, no. And that was Ghostbusters and all those, but Deke was cranking stuff out. But me, Frank Parr was there.
Oh, okay.
He was on Cops and Ghostbusters, and Dan, of course, was there, and Richie Chavez, who was in the backgrounds, Mike Gogan, and Brad Rader. Brad was there, and Brad was him and Mike Gogan were the backbones of my crew. I mean, Dan, of course, but Dan went on to direct his own stuff.
Okay.
On Batman. He was a director at Deke too.
Sure.
But Dan, of course, he just went on to become one of the better directors in animation, television animation, for sure.
So back in 92, or I guess it would be before 92, because that's the show was in production before that. The world was still kind of in this amazing love affair with Tim Burton's Batman, and you guys were obviously riding that wave a little bit. But what was it like to try to carry that spirit, but also make something completely your own?
Well, I mean, I'll backpedal a little bit.
Sure, please. Yeah, please.
Right before I worked at Batman, I was at Disney Features. I was in Story at Disney Features, on Lion King and Treasure Planet, doing development. I was in the development department. And the thing that was cool about being in the development department was that all of the concepts and stuff, and they would bring out storyboards of different projects. The Roger Rabbit ones would be there, the shorts. They had shorts that never happened, like Lord Goofstoke and stuff like that, which was, Goofy of the Apes was genius.
Oh my gosh.
And it never happened. Runaway Brain, I got to see the storyboards for that. But one thing that happened was that the Batman movie came out while I was still at Disney, and they didn't like Tim Burton.
Disney
up
did
to
that.
point, because it's like he worked there. He did Vincent and different things there, and he was one of the development guys, and he did a lot of projects for him. But I think Frank and Weenie really, something happened. There was like that they were soured on him. Happens all the time. But the thing is, I remember that I was sitting there and the Batman movie came out and it was a big deal. And the next thing you know, they pull out all these really great storyboards, these giant, story sketch things of Nightmare Before Christmas. That was, I got to see those. That was pretty awesome. That was Tim Burton, like, on his game.
Sure.
It was like, you guys turned this down? He says, yeah, but we ain't now.
Well, sometimes it's timing, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, I know. And they brought him back in. They made it. They basically said, we're going to do this with or without you, and I know you want to do it.
Yeah, well, they repaired that, because then they did Alice in Wonderland with him, and that relationship has been mended. I think.
Yeah, no, and it's like now that was so that was my first animation clash with the Tim Burton movie.
Okay, so you okay, so but then how do you guys then go, this is so cool, we want to make sure we put this in a cartoon form, but we don't want to just copying that. We don't want
to. After Disney, I was just right before I was working for TSR, the game company.
Yeah.
I was doing the Black Barney, the Buck Rogers comic.
Okay.
I was doing comics for them, in between. And I'd heard about, that they were going to do a Batman cartoon at Warner Brothers. And I was like, well, and I think it was Brad Rader that called me up and told me about it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. He says, no, you got to talk to these guys. And I was like, well, yeah, I will. And I think that he talked to Bruce. And I remember Bruce, because Bruce was also at Deke, but he was like on the John Cristofalusi team, on Beanie and Cecil.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
I worked with him briefly on Cops, but he, and it was really funny because back then he was like this long-haired hippie kid, rock and roll kid. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He was like a real rock and roll kind of guy,
Okay.
Long-haired rock and roll kid. Anyway, but so I knew him from that. He changed a bit, he's more sophisticated. And when I went over he called me up to, because they're looking for directors. And at that time, guys like me, Dan, Brad, we were all at Deke, and Mike Gogan, we watched like the Superman Fleischer Brothers cartoons all the time. We had like these bootleg VHS copies because you couldn't see it anywhere.
Right.
And we were like just in love with it, like the Fleischers were the kings, action adventure. And you couldn't really do any action adventure cartoons. I guess Lion King was the closest thing I'd ever done. Because
of the violence, you mean, right?
Yeah. And we did stuff like Starcom, which was good, but still very tempered, although there were violent, because they had robots. You got to shoot robots with laser guns, but it's always laser guns, and it's always removed,
Yeah.
So you didn't get to really do action adventure. Not really. And then and it's like in stuff like G.I. Joe, there's always like the parachutes have to pop out of the ship when it gets shot down. And you can't shoot someone in the chest. It's like things like that are just an absolute no-no.
You can always tell when you guys were letting loose on Batman the Animated Series. Whenever there was a robot, I always felt like, oh, cow, they are unleashing the violence on this thing. It was like, what changed? What's going on? Why? I remember
Heart of Steel. In Heart of Steel, it was like, that was like a long script that we got, and I was like warning everyone that this is going to be long. And lo and behold, every time a board artist, myself included, because every time I direct, I'll board. Every time you got like one of those sequences with a robot, it's like you just played it out.
Yeah.
And that thing came in so long. It was.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that you directed and did the boards. Is it harder to pull double duty like that, or do you feel like it's easier because now you don't have to re-explain yourself to somebody else?
Well, I'll probably get in trouble for this, but in animation, if you're not an artist, if you're not drawing, and you don't do storyboards, you shouldn't be a director.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
And especially at Deke, it was a half French, half Japanese company that opened up offices. So you had the French directors and you had the Japanese directors who came over, and like that was my training ground, was with the Japanese directors mostly, and they all drew,
right.
know? And it's like in like Miyazaki, a Miyazaki feature, he draws the whole storyboard. There's no script. He just starts drawing. He creates the whole thing.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it's like, so yeah, that's kind of the model. Me, Dan, it's like, and Frank Parr.
Sure.
We're all board artists. Boyd Kirkland, great board artist.
Oh, good. So, and you mentioned the longer story of Heart of Steel as well. That was part of what I loved about Batman the Animated Series, was when you guys allowed the story to breathe enough to have a two-parter. It felt even somehow more cinematic that way.
Yeah. No, and it's that they didn't do that too often.
No.
I think the first one was.
It was the Two-Face one, wasn't it, or was it the?
Yes. The first two-parter was Two-Face. No,
yeah.
I think Catwoman. Sorry, Catwoman was.
Cat in the Claw.
Cat in the Claw was actually a two-parter. I didn't get to do the second part, but I did the first.
Okay, well that was a great thing about the series. One of the things I loved about it was you guys had to handle these characters that really have embedded themselves in our culture. And you have to find a way to bring us the idealized versions of these characters, while at the same time introducing new characters who maybe aren't new to comics, but they're new to the collective consciousness. Yeah. And I mean, you guys did a really excellent job of making everybody feel important.
No, we don't. I mean, well, I mean, to backpedal a little bit, I'll just go and say, like, when I first went over to Warner Brothers, it was a corridor.
Yeah.
It wasn't on the main lot, and it was in Sherman Oaks, in the old Galleria.
Okay.
Which, if you want to see the old Galleria and what life was like, just take a look at Commando.
Okay.
That mall that Schwarzenegger does the big swing in and stuff. That's the Galleria, and that was the place.
Okay.
Anyway.
Not the most.
I go there, and there's like this one office. I'm like, am I in the right place? Because it's just a door, and it's like I go in there, and it's basically a long corridor kind of space, office space, and with like this big room at the end that Bruce was in. And I go in and I talk to Bruce, and I knew Ann Lighting, who was the production manager, and I knew her from Deke too, and she was like instrumental in how things got pulled off. And then she brought in Ken Doerr, who was also over at Deke, who started out as a translator, and then he worked his way up to production, and being a producer.
It's always reassuring to hear that you guys can work in teams that follow each other.
Yeah,
the industry is
cooperation.
What's that?
No, it's total cooperation, and like Ken Doerr and like the Japanese studios that we worked with were the same guys that I worked with at Deke. So it was like, Mr. Fukuda came in, for the first step for On Leather Wings. He came in as like the animation company.
Oh, wow.
And it was great to see him, It was so like when they come in, it's not like, oh, we got to do these negotiations and stuff. It's like, man, great to see you. How you doing?
That's awesome.
And that was pretty damn good. That was fun.
So for me, I was sort of just getting into comic books at the time that the show came out. Mainly because it was a point in my life where I was just sort of starting to get some monies that I could spend on my own. So I remember rushing home to watch Batman the Animated Series, and I starting to pick up the comics and getting to know these characters. But to this day, there are versions of the Rogues Gallery for Batman that, for me, my favorite version comes from the animated series. And it was my introduction to Clayface and Scarface, those two characters.
Yeah.
They quickly became like my favorite villains. Aside from, I mean, Joker's amazing, but I mean, as far as not the main villains everyone thinks of, those two guys became like my favorite villains, and you guys handled them with a respect that made it all feel very, very much like I was watching a stage play. You know, it was more about the acting than it was about too much action necessarily.
Yeah, no, thanks. That was kind of what we were aiming for. It's like we were, I mean, you know, it's like it was so long, and it was so long being in the animation industry and really trying to do something like this, you know. Yeah, and now it's like looking at this, you know, one of the great things is like just trying to
that, geez.
Yeah. One of the great things was like just creating like Clayface's powers. Like,
yeah.
Because the script doesn't say, you know, it didn't say to do this or do that. And it's like, so we're like, what's he going to do? It's like, well, you know, if I was him, you know, as he's learning his powers, it's like he starts out with axes and spiky things and stuff. And then he really starts to evolve and actually really figure it out. So by the end of this episode, Feet of Clay Part 2,
right?
You know,
well, a question that I often find myself asking, and I talk to other people about this too. It's very, very interesting. Is why animation for something? Why would you choose that medium for something? And I feel like Clayface is the embodiment of why animation for Batman.
Yeah, no, and also the thing about doing animation is I've met people in the industry, but you know, the thing about, and especially on Batman, if you weren't passionately in love with doing this, with drawing,
sure,
because you know how much drawing is involved in a storyboard and just in design and storyboard and background.
I do know.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, it's like, it's so much work. And then I could never fathom people that just come in and say, I got to draw that. Oh man, why? Jeez. You know, it's like, how come I got to do this? It's like, and you do run into it, but I'm just, you know, we would just, you know, me and Dan and, you know, and Mike Gogan, we just look at each other like, I don't know about this guy. It's like, what are you doing here if you're not totally into it?
Right. It's just incredible, and I like thinking about how you guys, even the characters that weren't the most cinematically dramatic looking, like Clayface, even like Roland Daggett, you guys really brought a real I don't want to say respect, because respect is not the word you use for a villain, but I mean you respect their prowess. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No. They have a, well, they're fleshed out real.
They're real people. They're real people.
And it's like, and pardon me, I was just looking at those things, and I was just like noticing how, like this scene right here where he punches the wall.
Yeah.
Right before this episode, which was brilliantly animated by TMS, not that one, but anyway, we got the animation, we got TMS, the animation studio. And I had just been called in because they said, look, we're doing much too complicated shows. You know, the budgets, you know, it's like the amount of money you're spending is like too much, you know, so we really have to simplify the animation down. And you got to figure out ways to really cut corners, you know, which you can do. You can do it many different ways. And it's like, okay, we'll think about that. And then I get this script and it's like Clayface. And I go into Alan Burnett and it's like, God, we can't do this. It's like, are you kidding me? It's like, you know, you just said we got to cut corners. It's like, I mean,
this is
like, who's going to animate this? It's like, are you kidding me?
This is movie grade quality right here. To me, this is this rivals anything from the major studios.
Yeah, but so the script in Alan Burnett, God bless him, he's like, look, you know, just pointed out, and it's like, I know the script's long. He says, just do what you do, and we'll figure it out.
Sure.
And so Alan Burnett, he's in charge of story, and Bruce, God bless him, and Eric, they let us really kind of restructure this script to fit it into the time. And it's like, because the powers that Clayface had, we had to invent.
Right.
You couldn't do what was in the script. It was just too much and too long.
Sure.
Like, for instance, I'll give you for instance, what a storyboard artist does is the script said where Germs is in the room and Batman's punching the wall. And Alan Burnett, that's the only thing he insisted on. He's like, no, I want him punching that wall. I want him punching that wall.
Why is that?
And I had to storyboard that myself because I couldn't give it to anyone else, because it's like, how are you going to make that work,
Yeah.
So I ended up doing that. And just as an example, the script then says the cop comes in. And the cop goes and says, I'll take it from here. And he goes and he grabs Germs, and he walks away. And then Batman goes, detective-like, something strange about that guy. The badge was wrong. And then he chases them down. They end up outside.
Sure.
And I go, nah. He just goes, and then suddenly it's like, Terminator, whatever. Terminator 2. And it's like, bam, and just bashes him on the wall. Okay, now that cut out 3 pages.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So that's one of those moments, kind of like Indiana Jones, where he's like, I'm just going to shoot this guy instead of having a big drawn-out fight with him.
Yeah, and it's like, we did stuff like that. And
okay. So, I've always wondered what cutting the budget, what that equates to. Does it equate to somebody, not working as many hours? Is it cutting back on staffing? Like, what does that actually look like?
Generally, well, on a show like Batman, where it's like a staff artist, there were freelance guys and girls, but it was mostly in-house. So everyone's on staff, so they're paid. They're paid to be there, and they have their jobs. So it was mostly stuff like that, like making a script work a little better, trimming things out, losing scenes, losing sequences.
Okay.
It's kind of the same thing that happens in live action, which is when I worked in live action in the 80s and all these really cheap science fiction movies, The
good ones.
Oh, yeah. Yes. No.
like the Blob remake.
I didn't work on that, but I would have liked to. I did work on the stuff with Dave Allen.
Oh, did you work on the stuff? That's funny.
Yeah, no, I storyboarded all the stop motion sequences.
Okay. Like anything with the Chiodo brothers? Anything with them?
Oh, Killer Clowns.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I owe a lot to Charlie Chiodo, because like when I first started working in movies, it was at Intravision, and through actually model maker friends of mine, like Gene Rizzardi, who built the Titanic. And he was like head of the model shop, and he was a friend of mine. He got me into Tim Donahue, who was the art director. And Intravision was basically a beam splitter system with VistaVision cameras and all sorts of shit. But basically, everything had to be super tightly storyboarded. And I could always draw. I always spent a lot of time like drawing buildings and houses and stuff. So drawing architecture was not a problem for me, even though I was a kid. But so I worked with them, and I would design shots for the Intravision camera, or they would explain, what model is going to be built. What's the model going to look like? What's the matte painting going to look like that's in the background? What's the, so I would have to draw all that stuff. And Charlie Chiodo and Steve Chiodo worked there. Doing special effects, matte paintings, and different things, and they were like brilliant. Steve especially was a brilliant stop motion animator, fantastic. And Charlie was like a great designer and a great storyboard artist. And they're 2 guys that I met. And the 80s, I was coming out of my shell.
Okay.
Oh, I miss the 80s. Hollywood in the 80s was so much fun. You know.
Yeah,
Again, I was like a kid from, it's like I grew up in Connecticut and Maine, so I'm like this shy guy that just like Charlie Kyoto helped me come out of my shell. That's all I'll say. and I just remember one day I came back and I don't quite remember where I was, but I woke up in someone's apartment, in Hollywood. And I just remember I had a t-shirt and I couldn't find it. I found my shirt, and I had my pants on, thank God. And I walked over and I go over to the Kyotos. They used to be over on Vermont in Hollywood. And they had like this, this warehouse kind of place that they lived in and served as also their studio. And I would go and, hang out with them quite a lot. And I just remember like I came walking across the street and Charlie comes outside and he looks at me. He just has a big grin on his face and he's just like, "You have arrived, kid." And that day he came in and they were explaining to me about killer clowns in outer space.
Yeah.
And just for free, Charlie and I were just doing concept storyboards.
Oh, wow.
I remember drawing stuff with like with the clown going down the mountainside. That was that's a pure Charlie concept. I mean, Steve must have, because Steve was the director of that. But I just remember the one thing that I got to draw was the dumpster behind the restaurant, where the big clown comes over and just puts his butt inside the dumpster and leaves, and he like lays all these Easter eggs.
Truly a unique movie of unparalleled dimension.
Yeah, no, that was a lot of fun. The Killer Clowns from Outer Space is a great movie too.
Oh yeah, oh yes.
It's like just no budget at all, and man, what they pulled off is.
Oh, I mean, they've proven that budgets are inflated at this point, to say the least. Yeah, I've wondered for years with this well handling of the stories that your team did for Batman. Why was it not thought, or maybe it was thought, and we just don't know about this on the consumer side? Why was it not thought to bring your amazing animation boarding and story team into live action and handle that part of DC films?
I don't. I mean, see, I really don't know, but we were kind of on our own. Like we were in Sherman Oaks,
right?
Building, and even when they expanded and actually built a facility, it was still in the same location. And you had Tiny Toons and.
But I mean, nowadays, why wouldn't they be like, here we are, we're launching all these DC live action movies. Let's bring the guys who did the animated series on as the guys. I mean, it just seems like a no-brainer to me.
They're not interested, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's all. I mean, it's just like they want to do what they want to do.
Sure.
And, if you're a director of a feature film, and they said, and you had the last thing they want to hear when they go to a convention is like, why don't you hire the guys from Batman the Animated and do something really good? They don't want to hear that. They have their own ideas.
I mean, I guess I get you, but at the same time, they want to have a success on their hands, and that to me would be a pretty clear way to make that happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on 30 years almost now since the show was launched. Not to date anybody,
but
the reason I'm bringing it up is because it really does say quite a lot that it's stood the test of time. What do you think, as a director, as a board artist, as an what do you think it takes to make something have that kind of staying power?
Quality and I don't want to say content so much as just characters that you love, you know, and that are fully fleshed out. There's touches that I would do that, like, for me, it's like I really loved Bruce Wayne, the guy, you know. I'd love to make him blush, because when he's Bruce Wayne,
Yes.
you know, I don't know if people noticed. I mean, it's subtle.
Yeah.
But, you know, but like when in Harley's Holiday,
Yes.
it's like one of my favorite things is where Veronica Vreeland is like, you know, she's pulling up clothes and going like, "Who dresses you anyway, Alfred?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, yeah." You know, it's like, and it makes them real characters and real people. You know, yes, they are drawings, but between the voice, you know, like Kevin Conroy, actors like that, you really, they have a real relationship to all the other characters in the cast. And the dynamic of Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson and Alfred is a great family dynamic.
Yes.
You know, and it really, and the acting is like Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. is so good. Oh my God. And then it's like,
I had to bring it up since you mentioned
Harley. I had to pull rank to get Harley too, because Paul Dini came into my office one day and he says, "You remember in the 60s, Cesar Romero is the Joker?" And I'm like, yeah, Paul. And he's like, "Yeah, that was great." And he says, "Yeah, he always had a moll. There was always a girl in the gang." And I'm like, "You're right." And he says, I think he needs a girl." And next thing you know, he creates Harley, and I'm like, "Oh boy, I can't wait."
Yeah, for those who don't realize that Harley started off on Batman the Animated Series, and really it is. I mean, I do appreciate what's come since then, but to be fair, I don't think you can really match what you and the team and Arlene brought to it. You know?
Yeah, no, Paul. I think he went to college with Arlene, but he knew Arlene. They were good friends.
Okay.
And she's, you know, just a superb actress. And I think I can't remember which soap opera she was on off the top of my head.
I thought it was Days of Our Lives, but I might be
Yeah.
I might be wrong about that.
Yeah, but
I mean, look, this stuff's incredible. Did you board this?
This was Kurt Gaeta.
Okay.
I think this was Kurt Gaeta. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think this was Kurt. I boarded a hell of a lot of this, but I was just like, this show came out as good as I could hope for it to, you know.
It's amazing to me how much. Okay, so this series, part of why I love it so much is it gave so much empathy to the villains. You really felt like they were human beings.
There we are.
There you go. You were really rooting for them as people. You wanted, and this episode especially, you just wanted Harley to be able to give herself a new chance at life, and you felt like in this series more than most, you felt like Batman cared about their reform, which I thought was amazing. Did you guys talk about that when you were developing the show? Was that a big important?
Oh yeah. No. It's like the board team, you know, the artist, and you know, it's like I was constantly walking in and talking to Paul about all that, you know. And so you know, it was really real teamwork, you know, coming up with this stuff. Oh, the animation on this is like on the hyenas got.
It's amazing
animation of anybody in this show.
Yeah.
In this episode, I love that joke too.
The chin joke
about that chin.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
And just Arlene's delivery.
Yeah,
like of the lines. It's like no, it's a fully fleshed out character that she and Paul invented, and
so much humor in a show that was oftentimes riddled with just.
Oh yeah, this coming up. Wait, I actually take credit for something.
Okay. She
pulls out this.
Yeah.
That's my signature.
Oh, that's great.
Because it's like they pulled someone made the prop, and he's like sitting there saying, "Well, someone has to sign it." So.
Well, that's cool, Kevin. I mean, you've been immortalized in a way that you probably didn't know was going to happen.
No, I didn't. I think Paul owns that cell.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just so much humor and heart, a lot of heart. You really felt for all these characters.
Oh yeah.
even when bad things happen, you kind of wanted them to pull through.
And another thing that's so cool is like, like Boxy Bennett.
Yeah.
Secondary character.
Sure. No, he's a great character.
Dick Miller. It's like,
yeah.
It's like watching him in like all the the Corman films, Harvey Korman, all the Corman movies.
Sure.
And it's like, and then there he is.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. You guys brought in some classically trained actors, and I don't know if you've noticed in any modern animations, whatever, since then, but a lot of times I feel like they're bringing people in who are just trying to sound older or authentic or gruff, and they don't have that quality already in them. And you guys brought the real deal in there.
Yeah. No, and again, that's Andrea. She would. I mean, she would come up with concepts. What an ad!
Oh, get rid of the ad. Sorry.
Oh, good.
So when you guys would
she would Andrea would actually actually Shirley Walker with the music would do the same thing.
Sure. Yeah.
She would actually, before she would score and Andrea, before she would cast it, would go in and say, "So who do you see playing this?"
Okay. Wow.
Who do you see? And the weirdest thing was the Joker originally was Tim Curry.
Yes, I've often wondered, where are those recordings? Do they exist somewhere?
I have VHS tapes of the original recording.
Yeah, we may have to have a conversation.
I found it as like, I'm like here, like cleaning out my garage and stuff, and it's like, oh, what's this? Son of a bitch.
I may need to see that at some point. Just saying.
Yeah.
But
no, it's like in Tim Curry.
Yeah.
His approach was gravelly, which was great.
Okay.
And his approach to the laugh was varied. And one thing that
do you think it would have worked with him as well?
Oh, yeah, of course. It was given to him, and it's like Tim Curry is the Joker.
Sure.
No brainer.
Brainer.
And it's like his performance, like he would do, like he did the Last Laugh.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's great. Again, I get to meet Tim Curry. He's like, Frankenfurter, it's like,
sure, yeah.
Like, the guy is he's just a god, and his take on the Joker was gravelly, like, but then he would break. He was more of a split personality.
Interesting.
The performance, if I was going to categorize it, he would do like, oh, we wouldn't want our poor little rodent to suffocate, so we just gotta punch some air holes,
right.
Like, and he turns into a different guy.
Yeah.
And Mark Hamill just had a completely different take. So I think Andrea, like she after Tim Curry couldn't do it, we had all these tapes that she would send over of all these really great performances. Lots of people doing it, and then Bruce comes in. He says, "Hey, listen to this." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's amazing!" And he's like, "Luke Skywalker." What? Get out of here! It's Luke Skywalker.
Is there anybody else that you can tell me who auditioned that didn't get the job, but you were like, wow, that person came in to audition for this, for any of the parts, not just Joker?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like there's so many different people. Like, well, for instance, Ra's al Ghul, right? Andrea says, "Okay, who do you see?" And we're like, "Oh God, it'd have to be probably a classic actor. Like, if we get Richard Burton, we get Richard Burton, but he's dead."
Right. Price.
And we're going through actors, and we said Patrick Stewart would be great. Yeah, and it's like, and then I said, I was just listening to these books on tape, and Michael York, he has really varied range because he could play a lot of different characters, and it was the Colleen McCullough First Man in Rome books. I said, "Oh, Michael York." He says, "I can get Michael York. I think he's in town. I think he lives in town. So I'll check on that, And so we actually got Michael York for the Off Balance, which is Count Vertigo, and also the first appearance of Talia, and the first appearance of Ra's al Ghul in kind of a cameo at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So we were thinking of Michael York, and then Andrea said, "How about David Warner?" And I was like, "That's even better." But what about Michael York? He can play Count Vertigo. You know,
It worked really well.
Yeah, and that worked out.
Your show's version of Ra's was my introduction to the character again, because I was sort of new to the superhero comic scene, and to this day, that's my favorite version of Ra's. Have you noticed though that since he's become more popularized due to films and TV, they're calling him Raz?
Wrong.
What can you
Denny
explain?
O'Neil.
What's happening?
Denny O'Neil. It's like I talked to Denny O'Neil about it, you know. And he made it very clear. It's like first off, it's like Denny O'Neil would go to all the comic conventions, and would premiere Batman. That was kind of part of his job. He was one of the editors in chief, and so he would go to the comic conventions, and he became. I would meet with him at conventions and got to know him, and I just have to say, when I was 13, and I read, Neil Adams. The Neil Adams Batman, the Jim Aparo and Neil Adams Batman was my Batman, but mostly Neil Adams.
Okay, cool.
That was because I really liked Carmen Infantino, Jack Sparling. You know, I liked Batman, but when I was like a teenager, just a new teenager, you know, Neil Adams came along and Denny O'Neil, and that was my Batman, you know, and then there was the Ra's al Ghul episodes of the series. And when I read those, ending with the duel in the desert, you know, with this Batman stripped to the waist and the saber duel in the desert, that's just something that when I was a kid, I just went, I want to do that as a cartoon.
Right. Well, and you
guys, I
guys
don't know why that one hit me. Like I'm like, no, I want to do a cartoon of that. And when I got when Bruce hired me, he actually said, you know, I actually said to him, and just promise me, please, just promise me. And I made Eric the same promise. And then Alan Burnett, when he showed up, the same promise. When Ra's al Ghul shows up, I'm doing Ra's al Ghul.
Okay.
Please. And they're like, okay, you got it. And I actually missed out on doing the sequel to Night of the Ninja because it was Demon's Quest showed up, and they got Denny O'Neil to do his own screenplay.
Amazing.
Of his own show, adaptation of his own thing. And I was like, everyone just get out of my way.
See, you worked with Denny at that point, right?
Yeah, but the same way you would work with any of the writers, but it's like once it's written, you know, Denny O'Neil's like, I think he was in New York at that time. But when the first part came out, I remember they were going to premiere it at WonderCon, the old WonderCon up in Oakland. And I used to go to the WonderCon all the time. It was the great convention. Downtown Oakland was like a lot of fun. Great convention. And I actually brought it up, and I screened it there. And it was like the first time an audience actually had seen the Demon's Quest. And, you know, everyone liked it. But the thing is, like, after it comes off, you know, Denny O'Neil's sitting there looking at it, and the lights come up, and he looks at me, and I'm like, oh shit, what? And then he looks at the audience, and he goes to the microphone, and he says, you know, it's really wonderful when you see something that you've created, you know, be realized as well as this is, you know, this, he says, Kevin, thank you. You know, this is great. And I'm like, oh, it's like, I'm a happy man.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's like the doing the Demon's Quest was really important to me, you know, to try and get that right. It's like, and And yes, and Denny was the guy. You know, we asked him, "How do you pronounce it?" And he says, "Raish Al Ghul." It's Raish, Raz. That doesn't even sound right.
Doesn't even sound right.
Yeah.
When you're boarding anything, we can go beyond Batman the Animated Series. Just in terms of boarding, your approach to boarding. I'm just going to shift a little bit gears there.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you? I mean, obviously boards are not moving; they are still moments. So, what are you looking for that you're like, that's it, that's the angle, or that's the shot?
You gotta live in the head of the character that you're doing. I mean, for me, it's like you gotta kind of create something in your mind that you want to see, and generally what you want to see is what the audience wants to see. You know, you have to have confidence in that, and you construct sequences from. I mean, the way I do it is like I kind of like walk into it in my mind. I'm the audience. This is what's going to happen. This is what they're going to see, and you have to have the ability to extrapolate what it's going to end up looking like. You know, panel by panel, and you got to you got to be in the head of the character that you're drawing, and you have to be immersed in the atmosphere, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Of where it is. You know, it's like doing Scooby-Doo is different than doing Batman, but is it really? No, it's a different thing. It's a different thing. But it's you. Like, I love Shaggy and Scooby and Daphne and Velma and Fred as much as, you know, Batman and Dick Grayson, and, you know, it's all the same thing. But you kind of live in the moment, and it comes out of you, and you draw. As you're drawing, you're thinking about constructing the sequence and what the audience is going to see.
What's the hardest type of scene to approach as a boarder? Is it dialogue? Is it action?
It depends. It just totally depends. It's like sometimes you struggle to come up with something that's new and different, and that people want to see, you know, and you go and you look at stuff and it's like, you know, oh, this is just like that other thing that I did, and I don't like that, because you're also limited, because what you draw has to be drawn by a layout artist, and has to be drawn by an animator, and has to be drawn by a background artist. You know, so you're drawing the backgrounds, you know, so you have to be a master of perspective and architecture or in furniture, all these things that you don't necessarily want to draw, but if you're going to do a storyboard, that's what you have to do.
Sure.
And you have to pretty much inhabit the character that's in there, whether it's a villain, which is a lot of fun, and that's another thing too. It's like, you better be having fun, or else I just feel sorry for you drawing animation, because if you're not having fun with this, it's like, my God, what a horrible living, what a horrible existence. You know, that's the one thing, is like, you may get ripped off, you know, different times or anything, but the plain facts are, it's like, if you love making these characters come alive, then, you know, fame and fortune or whatever that, you know, people think they're going to get doesn't matter, because it's like, oh, there's Daphne putting her feet on the Mystery Machine's dashboard. I drew that, you know.
And I like that you mentioned that sort of a subtle moment of just something as simple as putting your feet on a dashboard, because that's the same kind of stuff that I think Miyazaki does so well. Is he focuses on the nuances of just everyday life. Yeah,
and again, that's why Miyazaki is such a thing.
But you guys did approach some of that stuff in Batman, just a little, even in Harley's Holiday, just the little things of like having one of her heels hanging on the toe of her foot and just kind of dangling off, little like things like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and it's all thought out, and it's all, yeah, that's all part of it, and it's
Sure.
yeah, yeah, and it's like, and you just said Miyazaki, and the thing is, once you've seen Miyazaki,
The bar is set.
yeah, it's like the bar is set, and what he does, it's like it inhabits all of us.
Sure. Oh, yeah, that's what makes this resonate.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, just one of the greatest. Well, they're all great. It's like everything that Miyazaki does is great.
Yeah.
From Lupin the Third on, Conan, Boy of the Future, all of it's just fantastic. But yeah, you're right. It's like the thing is, like a series of drawings and just the love that Pasu and Shita have in Laputa for each other is so clear and wonderful. And it's drawings, it's acting too, but it's drawings, and of course, all classic animation does that. But there is something, even with limited animation, like the very ending of Castle Cagliostro, it just brings tears to your eyes, where the princess is sitting there saying, the inspector comes up and is like, oh, he got away again. And she says, but he didn't steal anything. Oh, yeah, he did. Your heart. And she's like, hi. It's like,
well, for what it's worth, you guys did that. You guys did that stuff for me. There were moments in the animated series where Bruce confronts his father's memory, and
yeah.
I mean, you guys, or you have even something as simple as the ventriloquist crying over a crumpled, destroyed version of Scarface.
Yeah.
And you just feel so much. I mean, obviously the voice has a lot to do with it, but the choices of the boards, the angles, the music, all of it comes into play. So thank you for bringing that to so many fans out there.
No, thanks. It's really good to hear. It's like, it's like it's like you just sit there and you kind of try and live in the moment.
Yeah.
And and I'll say this, just when you're talking about doing storyboards and being in the moment, probably one of the fastest storyboards I've ever done was the ending of Two-Face Part 1, where the bandages come off.
Yeah.
And he runs out into the hallway. And just as Grace is showing up with flowers, that it's like I just drew it, like it just came in my mind, from the circling camera work and the lightning storm and rain.
I mean, it's right out of classic 1950s horror, honestly, is what it is.
That is. It's like, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's like we're all watching, like me, Brad and Dan and Mike, and Mark Wallace, we'd just be sitting there just watching, like it's just like Orson Welles, like Touch of Evil was a big one that we would watch just for atmosphere and just like for feeling and camera work and just how do you get this across. And Hitchcock, especially 30s Hitchcock, like Young and Innocent, movies like that, Foreign Correspondent, not so much the big Hitchcock films, the black and white ones, and Psycho is too obvious of an influence.
Yeah.
I won't even, I just did, but it's like, we're not going to mention Psycho because it's just too obvious.
Before I let you go, Kevin, what are you working on now that people can look forward to, or if there's anything you can tell us, what sort of things can we, where can we see you next, I should say?
Well, the last show that I directed on was Onyx Equinox, which is going to be on Crunchyroll, wherever, I don't know what the deal is now, where it's going to be showing.
HBO Max, I think.
Yeah, maybe HBO Max. I'm not sure. About that because I'm not working at Crunchyroll right now. But Onyx Equinox, it takes place in Mesoamerica, the ancient world.
Nice.
And it has the pantheon of Aztec and Mayan gods.
Very cool.
Characters, and it's pretty damn cool.
Okay.
Cool. Sophia Alexander, who was someone I worked with over at Hasbro. She was she started out as a trainee, not a trainee, but a storyboard revisionist. She was a very good board artist to start. And she, she's working on my team, and she became like a very good board artist who went on, and then like, lo and behold, a couple of years later, she sold her show, which is Onyx Equinox, and it's really pretty cool. Well, that was something that I loved doing. Is like the ancient world was really, really fun to draw.
Not very tapped into, so that sounds pretty interesting, and I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you, Kevin, for doing this, and hopefully we'll be able to talk again in the future.
Yeah, anytime.
All right, bye.
See you guys later.
All right, well, we are at the end of another episode. Thank you guys so much for being here. I do want to let you know, for those of you keeping score, there are 2 weeks left in this series of shows. So I've got the rest of August. We got the 24th and the 31st, if I'm not saying that wrong. That's correct. And then Stay Tuned Live will go away for a little while. The podcast version of this show will come back, and that'll be here for a third season. If you haven't heard the podcast yet, there are 2 seasons you can go check out. It's like 30 episodes. So just look up Stay Tuned in your favorite podcast app, or go to anchor.fm/Filmaki, and you can check out all of those episodes. Alrighty, I want to once again thank my special guest, Kevin Altieri, for taking the time to discuss one of the most powerful and influential cartoons of all time. And thank you so much to all of my Stay Tuned patrons, guys. Your support continually encourages me each and every month and helps me make it possible to keep doing what I do as an independent creator. So if you enjoy these free weekly shows and you'd like to support them directly, go to patreon.com/Filmaki, and you can learn all about the various reward tiers and sign up today. And while you're at it, feel free to check out my own original comic books at filmaki.com. Be sure to say hi to me here on social media, right here on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, just right under my own name. You can also check out the guys on the wall behind me. If you search Retail Sunshine here on Facebook, I post daily updates as close to daily as I can. So, once again, please be sure to check out the Stay Tuned community. If you guys enjoy this program and other stuff in animation, you want to be able to keep in touch with all that and other fans just like yourselves. There's a Stay Tuned community here on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com/groups/Stay Tuners. I've been Filmaki. You've been a wonderful audience. And until next week, keep those eyeballs peeled, those ears open, and be sure to stay tuned.